Dogs, Casey Porter here, joined as I am each and every show by Austin Brubaker. And tonight we have a very exciting topic. The Rule 5 draft is going to be next week. There is a roster crunch with the Dodgers. It's all about who is going to be on that 40-man roster. The Dodgers have 35 on it right now. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to go through all of the players in the system that are eligible for the Rule 5 draft, and then we're really going to hit on the handful or so of guys that we think either might get protected by the Dodgers and or if they're not protected, get taken. So going to have a fun show tonight, Austin.
It's going to be a really fun show, Casey. Really excited to talk about this, kind of get a little bit more in depth into some of the nerdy baseball aspect, but also something that is incredibly important for a lot of the guys, especially at the minor league level. And then also for these organizations as well. This Rule 5 draft, although it might seem like a small aspect of the game, actually does matter when talking about roster construction. And so this is going to be an important week for a lot of these guys. It's going to be an important week for the Dodgers. Deadline is the 14th. I believe that is Tuesday to add players to the 40-man roster to protect them for the Rule 5 draft. So a lot of important decisions going to be coming up. So excited for the show, excited to hear from the crowd. Friday night, haven't done one of these before, so we'll see what happens.
So first of all, what is the Rule 5 draft? It was put into place a long, long time ago to make sure that organizations like the Dodgers just can't hoard prospects and just keep them for themselves just so other organizations can't get them. So it's a good deal for the minor leaguers. So if you are 18 years or younger, you have to have 5 years of minor league service or more, okay? And if you're 19 or younger, then it has to be 4 years. So if you are 18 or younger and you've had 5 years of minor league service and you have not been put on the 40-man roster, so after that 5th year of minor league service, either your organization puts you on the 40-man or you become eligible to get drafted in this Rule 5 draft by all the other organizations. If you're 19 or younger, then you just need to have 4 years of minor league service. After that 4th year, again, if you're not put on the 40-man roster, then you are eligible for this Rule 5 draft. Once you get picked up in the Rule 5 draft, then the team that picks you up, not the 40-man, they have to put you on their 26-man, and then they also, I think, have to send over like $100,000 in cash, and then they have to keep you on the 26-man for the entirety of the next season, and if they don't, like we saw with Gus Varland, then they have to send you back. So, hey, if you're going to take a guy in the Rule 5 draft, then you better be pretty serious about thinking that he's going to be on your roster for the entire next season, because if not, then you're going to end up spending some cash and having to give him back anyways.
Yeah, no, I think the Rule 5 draft is all about competitive balance across the league and trying to find a way to protect the minor league players while also finding a way to balance that with organizational success and balance. So with that, Rule 5 draft obviously is a way for other teams to acquire talent from successful organizations that perhaps have a lot of minor league players. We know that there's very limited opportunities at the major league level. There's only limited amount of guys that can be on the Dodgers roster. There might be more guys in the Dodgers system that are talented enough to be added. This is a way for other teams and for those players who might be stuck behind guys to get opportunities. So you mentioned some of the rules and stuff, some of the behind the scenes stuff with the Rule 5 draft. That's absolutely correct. And it has come to play in the past. We know last year there was 3 Dodgers prospects who got selected. Ryan Noda had a very successful season in Oakland. Wasn't going to likely get an opportunity to do that in LA. He goes and has success in Oakland. Jose Hernandez, left-handed pitcher, goes to Pittsburgh and has an opportunity to succeed all season with the Pirates over there. Gus Varland had an opportunity in Milwaukee, didn't work out. Now he's back with the Dodgers organization.
Of which he had 8 performances, 7 of them were very good. He got hurt, and then that 8th one he gave up 7 runs in like 2/3 of an inning. So it was
You're absolutely
very
right.
good other than one outing.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's the Brewers' loss for that, Dodgers' gain for being able to get them back, and that's kind of the one of the balances that it has. So all about competitive balance, going into a little bit more of the depth to try to make things a little bit more fair and provide additional opportunities for the guys at the minor league level. Something we saw earlier this week with minor league free agency. Again, about providing opportunities for a lot of the minor leaguers. This is Rule 5 draft for some of those guys who might be stuck. They might get opportunities. But for the Dodgers organization, they have to find guys that they identify as guys that they want to or need to protect going forward in the future. And they have to use valuable 40-man roster spots to protect those individuals. We've seen this with the past. Last year, Pages, Cartaya, DeLuca, guys that were selected, added to the 40-man roster and had to take up spaces through the entire season in order to avoid being protected. They're going to have to make the exact same decisions again coming up by the end of the day, Tuesday, or I don't know exactly what the certain time is with that. Very important decisions coming up for the Dodgers.
Yeah, and last year I think putting DeLuca on the 40-man surprised a lot of Dodgers fans. Did not surprise us. We warned you on that one, no doubt about it. I think it surprised people that Jose Hernandez got taken. I think if you follow Dodgers daily, you would have realized that he was hitting 99 from the left side. That's very impressive. Gus Varland been tooting his horn. And I just told everybody that would listen last year that Ryan Noda was going to get taken and that he was going to get, whoever took him was going to keep him on the roster the entire season, and that he is a legit major leaguer. And, so last year was one that stung for me because that left-handed 99, the Dodgers could definitely use that. Jose would probably have been, maybe in AAA Oklahoma City by the end of this season. Gus Varland, we got him back. I think Ryan Noda would have gotten playing time. He would have been that left-handed stick that you could have used in left field. So, those were losses, no doubt about it. Mm-hmm. And there are some guys on this list. There's only 5 spots left. The Dodgers already have 35 spots of the 40 accounted for. Then you have to take into the equation, you're probably going to pick up 2 free agents at least. So I think you have to save 2 of those 5 spots for free agents that aren't on the 40-man right now. And then that leaves 3 spots for guys that are in the system right now. Or, the other option is you could trade for somebody, and in that trade, there would be a couple of guys like a Diego Cartaya, maybe a Yorbit Vivas, that are already on the 40-man roster. So there's a lot of moving parts here, but I think bottom line is when you do the math, I think there's probably a maximum of 3 spots that are available to the guys that are in the system right now that are not already on the 40-man.
I think that is a really good calculation. You mentioned right now, Dodgers already have 35 players on their 40-man roster. That's without adding any sort of pitching. That's without adding a DH of some sort if you wanted to go down that route. That's without making any sort of trade acquisitions. Mm-hmm. The Dodgers are very limited right now with their roster spots. There's only maybe a couple guys that you could point to.
I've been saying all year, this offseason is not about spending money. It's all about roster spots.
Yes, and that it makes it very challenging for a lot of these decisions the Dodgers are going to have to make. There is a lot of extremely talented individuals that are Rule 5 eligible this season. We'll be going over that list here fairly shortly. There's a lot of very talented individuals, some of which we might say, hey, I don't think they're going to get protected. That is in no inclination as far as the talent that they have. That is just a realization of where the Dodgers are at right now and what we expect some of their decisions to be going forward. Look, the Dodgers right now are solely focused on the World Series. They have been stunned by what has happened in the postseason the past couple of seasons. They need to add talent to the big league roster in order to make that next step or find some other alternative strategies. So they need to make gains for that. With that, that limits some of the roster spots that you have up in towards down on the roster in order to have those guys supplement the roster perhaps later. So other guys who might not be the NickFrasso or LandonKnack, who we kind of expect to be selected or added to the 40-man roster. Some of those other guys, there's serious question as far as if there's going to be an actual spot for them, because they might need those spots for other players to push for a World Series instead of protecting them for perhaps future gain. Right now, a lot of it is about winning now. So there might have to be some sacrifice as far as some of the future success and some of the talent that might come up, which is unfortunate for the Dodgers because they might miss out on some incredible talents that we've been able to see grow the past couple of seasons through the minor leagues.
Yeah, the thing about it is that, hey, the Dodgers shed Eddie Leonard this past season. I think they did that because they saw what was going to happen with the 40-man roster spot crunch, and they figured out the best way to get back one of those spots, and so the problem they have too is that there's absolutely nobody on that 40-man roster list right now that you're going to ever DFA. You're not going to DFA Yorbit Vivas. You're not going to DFA Andy Pages. You're not going to DFA Diego Cartaya. Those are the only three that you would even consider doing that with right now, and that's not going to happen.
Yeah, it gets really tough because, especially with the depth that the Dodgers have right now, I mean, you'd probably, as far as positional players wise, I don't think there's anybody you would DFA unless you wanted to do something like a Austin Barnes, in which case you need another backup catcher to fill in with that spot, and you need depth at the catcher position. Pitching wise, you might be looking at maybe a left-handed reliever or two that you potentially could shed, but you also need at least a lefty reliever for depth in that aspect. So there really is not a lot of spaces for the Dodgers to trim down as far as DFA. You could see some trimming down.
Likely? Not any of it, the prospects. Who would be the likely guys, at the LA level, do you think would be?
I mean that's really tough to say. You'd be looking at some of the relief arms, left-handed relief arms, I think a Victor Gonzalez is still on the 40-man roster technically. He could be one where they could look to see potentially get him back, but more on a minor league deal, not on the 40-man roster. There's some other guys, relief arms, that I think would be most likely, just because I think the Dodgers feel like they could replace them. That just has been the philosophy of the Dodgers in the past. I think your general point is there's not a lot of room to add some of these other talents and supplement them with the way the Dodgers operate and with the necessity to add in additional talent during the offseason. There will be two spots that open up with Dustin May and Tony Gonsolin, but those won't open up until the start of spring training. So you have to wait for those roster spots to open up before you can put them on the 60-day injured list. So a lot of this math becomes extremely difficult for the guys on the Rule 5.
Okay, so some of the 40-man guys that who knows? All right, JP Fireeisen, Victor Gonzalez, you mentioned him, Brian Hudson. Let's see, going down the list here. Ryan Yarbrough.
Yeah.
Any of those? I mean, Brian Hudson, maybe.
Potentially. I mean that's kind of what you're looking at right now, is looking at some of those arms and making some difficult decisions if you wanted to add some of this other talent. But then again, you also need that pitching depth. So whether it's those guys or whether you sign guys to minor league deals that are going to be close, that are going to be in AAA Oklahoma City, or if you rely on some of the guys that are already in the minor leagues to hopefully come up, there's a lot of decisions that have to be made. There is a tight roster crunch, so I think the Dodgers could potentially add 3 guys, depending on what they want to do. I don't think 4 is very likely, though. I think that is really pushing it with the Dodgers.
I think you have to DFA somebody that's already on your 40-man to do that.
Yes,
It would be probably Brian Hudson.
it would be one of those guys on that list, most likely, yes.
I would have to think so. Okay, so let's get to the list. We mentioned, we've kind of gone over the logistics. What is the Rule 5? What are the scenarios here? There's only 5 spots left. So let's get to the list. Let's get to, we're not going to go over, there's like 45 of them, right?
Yeah, there's quite a bit. And we might just mention them kind of briefly. We won't go kind of in
as
depth
we go
into
on,
each one of those.
But let's get to the meat and potatoes of it.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and start with the pitching aspect. And we'll start with the 2 guys that I think most people, including us, kind of expect the Dodgers to protect on the 40-man roster. Let's go ahead and start with the first one, NickFrasso. We've talked about him quite a bit. He's one of the guys towards the upper levels, got to AAA, Oklahoma City, made a really big impact, got that really electric stuff, very highly thought of within the Dodgers organization, and has had a lot of success. He's one of those guys where it's almost an automatic. He is going to be added to the 40-man roster. Yeah. Was acquired in the trade, the Alex DeJesus trade back in 2022. And he was just a steal for the Dodgers to be able to acquire him. Wish all the luck and success to Alex DeJesus. Getting a talent like NickFrasso, though, was extremely tough to pass up on. They were able to acquire this talent, and he has really performed well in the Dodgers organization. He is almost an automatic add to the roster.
Yeah, I would totally agree with him. We're talking about NickFrasso, who we're talking about. I think he is going to be the very first one. I'm trying to pull up some video here of him. Austin, let me get some video pulled up on him, and we can take a look at him. I think I actually have some live video right here that we're going to take a look at. Then I'll move it over to you, and then we'll get going right there. You see that right there. Okay, this is NickFrasso. I think definitely he would be the first one you're going to put on the 40-man. I think the second one we'll get to here in a minute would be LandonKnack. But Frasso, no doubt about it. Hey, he's been injury prone. He was on the injured list last year too. That would be the only downfall you could think about him. He got injured while he was with Toronto, and his first game back, he actually hit 100 miles an hour on a couple of different occasions. So you're talking about a right arm that can hit triple digits. Watch this right here, gangly. It's an uncomfortable at bat. You can see that, right, Austin?
Yes, I can.
It's a very, very, very right there, the ball, not only does it have a lot of velo, it has great extension. Watch him get down the mound here. Watch that. Look how far down the mound. That hole right there that he lands in, he created that by himself. So there's a couple of things about NickFrasso. Very gangly. You see a lot of just kind of knees and elbows. And then another thing that you're going to see here is that he crossfires. So it's like he's stepping towards third base, and then the ball just kind of comes out of his hand, and it's like a slingshot. It comes across, like right there. You saw that one. That is a crossfire. Look at it right. As a right-hander, it just makes you want to pull off. See how that hitter right there is pulling off that pitch? It makes you late. So that crossfire right there makes it even more difficult. Then he has great extension. Then he has incredible velo. So I just don't see any possible chance whatsoever that the Dodgers don't protect NickFrasso. I think he's absolute number one. He would go in a heartbeat, and I think whoever took NickFrasso, if the Dodgers did not protect him, would be laughing all the way to the whatever it is, the table they had to do to sign him on the dotted line.
Oh, no, he would be the number 1 overall selection in the Rule 5 draft if he is left on the table, which the Dodgers will not make that mistake. You talked about it. He has got incredible velo. He strikes out a lot of batters, too. In Tulsa, he struck out almost 30% of batters. And you talk about that length, that kind of crossfire motion in combination with the stuff that he has, just makes it an incredibly difficult at bat for hitters. He's had a ton of success at the upper levels at the minor leagues, also at the lower levels too. He's somebody who you will see probably start at AAA Oklahoma City, work his way up. We know that we saw some guys from AA and AAA make their debuts this past season. So depending on injuries, what happens over the course of the season, he's a guy that could make his debut coming up next season, depending on what happens. Definitely somebody who's extremely highly thought of within the Dodgers organization.
That's why I wanted to show you. It's harder to tell from this angle here. I wanted to show you got to see the angle from behind home plate because you got to see what the hitter's seeing in terms of, just what it looks like, the ball coming out of a pitcher's hand. Because when you just see this angle right here, it looks a lot easier to the hitter than it actually is. You don't get the true effect of the crossfire motion and just how difficult it is, just the gangliness, just the knees and elbowsness of his motion. You just don't quite get the true, just effect of how difficult it is for him, for hitters to try to time him up. And see that right there, that's a professional hitter. That is a left-handed hitter. That's a righty-lefty matchup. Just didn't see the ball. I mean, just literally just kind of throwing his bat at it because it's just different. Look, that hitter right there didn't see the ball. Very, very, very late. That's about a 95, 96 mile an hour fastball. He also has, the good slider. And so, yeah, NickFrasso, he's a guy, as long as he can stay healthy, there's a good high riding fastball. As long as he can stay healthy, he is a guy that is going to be a very good major league pitcher for a long time. Another one of those power arms. So, hey, Austin, let's move on and let's move to the second guy that you think that the Dodgers that is in line to be protected by the Dodgers.
Yeah, I'll just add in a couple comments from the comments section. Fernando says reminds you of Jared Weaver with that crossfire, and then Yasiel Puig, who welcome to the channel, Yasiel. Just said Adam Ottavino delivery. So a couple nice comps right there. Next guy on the list, another guy that
you're going to have to handle most of the comments tonight. I'm going to be busy flipping through videos. It's going to be tough for me to get back through screens. I'll be able to do it some, but if you could handle as many comments as you can get to.
Oh yeah, no, we'll get to the comments eventually. I know there were some comments kind of earlier that were mentioned. We'll try to get to those when we can. But we're kind of rushing to the next guy on the list who the Dodgers are most likely to protect. That's LandonKnack, and we've talked about him quite a bit. A guy who dealt with injuries in 2022, worked his way back, and man, he performed this past season in AA, in AAA. I mean, you look at some of the numbers that he put up, just unreal numbers. He's got really great stuff. I know that you got a good chance to interact with him. You got a good chance to see him in person, as you can see the live video from you in here. Yeah, great individual, but also has got some really good stuff. Definitely a guy that the Dodgers should and probably will protect coming up pretty soon.
You're putting a probably in there?
I'm putting in a yes, they will protect him.
Okay. Yeah, I think they will. He's a guy with 4 pitches. The thing about him is that, hey, he is the power arm. He can reach 96 miles an hour. But, the confidence to be able to throw all 4 of his pitches, the fastball, the changeup, the slider, and then the curveball, he can throw them all at any count. He is equally as confident with all 4 pitches. I've seen it many different times. He'll go, he'll throw a 3-run changeup or a 3-1 curveball or a 3-1 slider. And then also, a lot of times TrackMan, his stuff is so good and it moves so much that sometimes TrackMan lists him as a 5-pitch pitcher. And I actually asked him about that in Oklahoma City. I said, hey, I had you as 4 pitches. We'd always talked about you having 4 pitches. TrackMan sometimes give you 5 pitches, and he's like, nope, it's 4 pitches. He says, sometimes they like to make that slider be a little bit, tighter, kind of cutterish, more of a bullet type slider. We see that with Kyle Hurt. Sometimes I make it bigger, and then sometimes it's a mix between maybe my bullet and my curveball. So it's kind of that 3-9 type deal or 9-3 type deal, however you want to put that from a righty. So this is a guy that, hey, he's not the 100-mile-an-hour guy like NickFrasso is, but he is super, super major league skilled. No doubt about it. I think he would fit in right now probably at a 4 spot, maybe a 5 spot in a major league rotation and be very, very, very good at the back end of a major league rotation. Asked him point blank, hey, did you feel like with all these power arms coming up, did you kind of feel like you're becoming underrated in this system, almost like you were kind of getting overlooked? And he didn't avoid the question. He said, yes, absolutely. I came into this season wanting to prove to everybody, remind everybody that LandonKnack is still one of the best pitchers in this Dodgers organization, still one of the best young pitchers in minor league baseball. He used that motivation as fuel to his fire and had a great year.
Yeah, and I think with that, a lot of the guys at the upper level of the Dodgers organization, pitching wise, there's a lot of guys up there, and it's starting to get a little bit crowded as far as opportunities are concerned. And I think with that, we talked about this past season, LandonKnack had kind of having that motivation, feeling like he's been overlooked, that people have kind of given up on him.
Yeah.
I think with this season, he can kind of use that as motivation again. Obviously, that worked. You talk about ERAs and the two, both at AA and AAA. I think with this season, I think he needs to have that same competitive spirit and go out there and force his way into the Dodgers rotation, force his way onto the Dodgers roster in whatever way he can. So there's a lot of really talented guys who are going to be fighting for spots, especially if the Dodgers look to add some of that starting pitching. And so with that, to keep up that competitive spirit. But what I love about LandonKnack is what he was able to do in AA this past season. You talk about a guy who had a lot of strikeouts.
That is sweet, isn't it?
Oh, it's so sweet.
Yeah.
You're talking about a guy who had 28% strikeout percentage. But what he did in AA this past season, especially at the start, was he was really able to limit the walks. He only had a 5% walk percentage.
Yeah, no, he's a strike thrower with 4 pitches. That's what he is. That is literally his value, is that he can throw strikes at a major league skill level with 4 different pitches.
Yes, no, that is absolutely correct. And that's something that you don't always see in the Dodgers organization. You see a lot of guys that have crazy stuff, but they don't always know how to control that. LandonKnack has that crazy stuff, but he has some control to it as well. He kind of merges those both together. And like Sean said, both Knack and Frasso would be in a major league rotation on every other team, just about every other team. I know there's a lot of talented rotations on there, but the talent that they have is incredibly special, which is why I think it's essential for the Dodgers to add these guys to the 40-man roster. That's just going to keep up with the depth of the starting rotation. We know throughout the course of the year, there are a lot of starting pitchers needed to be added to major league rosters. There's a lot of pitchers that are going to be needed to get through a 162-game season. Both NickFrasso and LandonKnack are going to be of serious help either to the rotation or in whatever role the Dodgers envision them having at the major league roster. I think they are both two guys that are easy additions to the 40-man roster.
Lots and lots of skill in terms of location, and you mentioned it, accuracy and not just control. You're seeing right here, see him ride that fastball. You saw him place the changeup and the slider on the outer half. There's a difference between control and command. Control is kind of what guys on the single A level are working on. Hey, let's just get the ball somewhere in the strike zone, right? Let's just not walk people. That is control. Okay, so LandonKnack a long time ago graduated from control to command. See that changeup that ended up on the outer half right there? He graduated a long time ago from control to command, meaning command is, okay, now can I actually not just throw strikes, but can I locate the pitches where I want to within the strike zone to actually miss barrels and that kind of thing. What you're seeing right here, you're seeing him locate that slider on the outer half. You're seeing him locate that changeup, on the in the outer half to the glove side sometimes. Sometimes he's locating it to the arm side. You can see right there he hit the 4 slot. You've seen him hit the, to a lefty, so you're seeing him hit that 4 slot low and away. You saw him hit that high riding, up and in spot to a right-hander. You've seen him throw the changeup to the lefty, or to the right-hander, I should say, to the glove side. You saw him throw the slider to the glove side to the righty. So you've seen him that's the thing about a guy like him that can command the ball, meaning he can actually throw it to the location he's trying to throw it to. It, typically speaking, is a little bit more ambidextrous in the sense that because you have 4 pitches and because you can command those pitches, you can get guys out on both sides of the plate because you have that type of arsenal that can do that.
Yeah, no, I think that's absolutely right, and I think there's a lot of talent in his arm. Hepatitis See You Later, which is just a phenomenal name for a YouTube channel. I don't think we've ever quite mentioned how much we appreciate that. Says Tim Rogers compared Knack to Giolito. I think you can see that with some of the pitches that he has, with some of the command that he has. I think that is of high praise to the talent that LandonKnack has. And then, as you mentioned before, he's a great individual as well. Definitely a guy worthy of adding to the 40-man roster for the Dodgers.
Yeah, I think that was our comment on our trade show, is that basically Lucas Giolito is LandonKnack at the major league level right now.
Yeah.
So that's a good comp, no doubt about it. Landon, though, a young man, he is the all-time strikeouts leader at East Tennessee State University, went to Walter State out of high school, and believe it or not, really didn't get a whole lot of looks. Went JUCO to Walter State, which is just a fantastic JUCO program. Didn't have a whole lot of big offers, went to East Tennessee State, and really even after his junior year, didn't have much action from the professional scouts. Then had just a huge senior year, and then finally got drafted by the Dodgers, and has fought some injuries. He had forearm injuries in 2022 that really hurt him. He ended up this last year, I believe the last month, on the IL, so he's another one of those guys that if he doesn't make the 40-man, it would be because of the injured past, and because he did not finish the season this year. He actually finished the season on the IL.
Yeah, I think that's the only concern that I would have if I'm the Dodgers, if I am trying to figure out this 40-man roster. We know that it's very limited. That's the only thing that I would worry about. But with that, for other teams that are looking to add players to through the Rule 5 draft, that would not be a concern to them really much at all, because if they get injured, they just put them on the injured list, and then they don't have to necessarily pitch him all the time. And so other teams are looking for kind of loopholes to go through this to add talent. And if you could add a talent like LandonKnack, even if he struggles a little bit, if unfortunately some injury pops up, some other team is going to take advantage of that. So a lot of moving pieces with this, but I think with both LandonKnack and NickFrasso, both guys highly expect the Dodgers to add to their 40-man roster within the next couple of days.
I think they get 2 out of the 3. We're saying a maximum of 3. There could be more based on trade. You might trade away somebody that's on the 40-man. That opens up a 40-man spot. But then if you trade away somebody that's on the 40-man, you're probably going to be getting somebody back that's going to replace that person on the 40-man. So, okay, so who would be your third guy that's eligible that you think would get taken, that is most likely to get protected?
So this goes to the question of I think the most likely guy to be selected is Hunter Fiducia. Now, there's a couple of reasons for that. I think the primary one that I would say is catcher depth. So with Hunter Fiducia, I think he is a guy that is extremely,
you think he's likely to get
talented.
The third most likely to get protected or taken?
I think he is the third most likely to be protected by the Dodgers. Okay. Now, let me explain this. One, Hunter Fiducia is an extremely talented individual. You look at this past season, not just behind the plate, catching wise, but he also put up WRC plus 106. You talk about a guy that walks a lot and doesn't strike out a lot. But the main reason why I would say this has entirely to do with the depth that the Dodgers have at the catcher position. Yeah. Look, right now on the 40-man roster, you have 3 catchers. You have Will Smith, who is your everyday starting catcher. You have Austin Barnes, which right now is the backup catcher. He has under contract for $3.5 million. And then you have Diego Cartaya. Now, Diego Cartaya, we talked about in the last show, extremely talented individual, is still working on some stuff through the minor leagues. So I don't anticipate him being ready to be called up to the major leagues.
Not next year, no.
Not next year, or at least not at the beginning of next year. Things could change. He could turn something on super quick. Things could happen right there. But I'm not anticipating him being ready. With Hunter Fiducia, you have a guy that has been at the AAA level, both last year and he had some experience the previous year as well. He is close to major league ready. Now, right now, the Dodgers have 3 catchers, one of which is not ready for the major leagues. That leaves you with 2 catchers. What happens if there is an injury to one of those 2 guys?
Yeah.
You're looking at the Dodgers you're looking at guys within the organization. You're talking about Hunter Fiducia, which if he is not taken by the Dodgers, I expect him to be taken in the Rule 5 draft by another team. That makes him unavailable. The next closest guy to the big leagues is CarsonTaylor, which CarsonTaylor is incredibly talented individual.
He's been hurt for like 2 years. He's not close to the major leagues right now.
Yes, and he has not had a single AAA at bat. And then behind him, you're talking about guys that were in Great Lakes last year. So the decision that the Dodgers are going to have to make with Hunter Fiducia has to come down to, are they going to add either a major league talent, somebody that they could add and then perhaps replace Austin Barnes with him, in which case that doesn't solve your depth problem, or are you going to add Hunter Fiducia to the roster for the primary purpose, I shouldn't say sole, for the primary purpose of having some of that catcher depth? Or do you use that as an opportunity to sign some guys to minor league free agent deals like the Dodgers had at the AAA level this past season and have that be your backup catcher depth? So I think all this comes down to, for Hunter Fiducia, if the Dodgers see catching depth and they see Hunter Fiducia as their best option and they see it as well above and beyond the option of signing minor league free agents, and they think that is going to be best for their organization.
Barnard, like they got David Freitas last year, they got Patrick Mazeika, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and they could totally do that, in which case that would open up a 40-man roster spot. Or they could decide, hey, we like catcher depth, or we know that there probably is going to be a need at some point through the season, either Austin Barnes or Will Smith dealing with some sort of injuries. We want to have Hunter Fiducia as that insurance as we look towards the future to get guys like Diego Cartaya, guys like Dalton Rushing, Tyrone Lorenzo. You go throughout the list. Those guys, extremely talented, more towards the lower levels of the minor leagues. I think that points to Hunter Fiducia being the third most likely addition. We'll have to see what the Dodgers do. For Hunter Fiducia individually, I'd love to see him get an opportunity with another organization. I think that's going to be best for him individually. Mm-hmm. But the Dodgers are also going to try to do what's best for them as well.
Well, and the Dodgers also might not be convinced that he would get picked up in a Rule 5, so they don't protect him. They might not be totally convinced that he would get picked up anyway. So just looking at that swing right there, I slowed it down a couple of times. You can just see just how long that barrel's in the zone. Let me go through it again here. If I can get my computer to work right here. It's actually not working right now, so I'm going to get back to that here in a second. But his swing is one that is just so compact. You watch his head. Okay, I had that side view just a second ago. You watch his head, it just doesn't move. I don't know why I think actually right there. Okay, that's the problem right there. Okay, so watch this right here. What I want you to watch his head, okay? Watch how still his head is. See his eyes right here? Watch how his eyes track the ball. See how his eyes never move? I mean, look how he tracks that ball. And literally, okay, so this is called rotation. Watch how his whole entire body rotates around his head. Watch this. Head never moves. That's impressive. Now, you want to know why Hunter Fiducia is one of the best hitters in all of baseball at hitting high velo? Watch this. Head never moves. And the swing is so simple. Look how the barrel's in the zone right here. See how flat that is coming through the zone? Now watch how, see how this ball's coming through? Watch how flat this barrel stays through the zone getting to that ball. See that right there? That between the head not moving and then the barrel just being in the zone, flat through the zone for that long period of time, that's why that dude can hit elite fastballs. And that's one of the reasons why if he doesn't get picked up, I would pick him up in a second, and I would give him starts in the major league level, and I would see if that left-handed swing could play. But I think it's going to be very difficult. I think he's a 50-50 with the Dodgers.
Yeah, I would put it at that too. Some comments right now. There's a lot of comments right now about Fiducia. Sean says free Fiducia. Yasiel Puig
Yeah.
says sounds like a dish at Olive Garden. Plate of Fiducia with the side of ribeye. And then there's a comment. Any chance they trade Barnes now that Kershaw's future is dim? That would be a good chance for Fiducia to come up.
Who's going to trade for Austin Barnes?
That would be my big question with him. I don't think it's likely, especially with his past season. We know the struggles that Austin Barnes had last season, especially offensively. I think other teams are going to see that and they're going to kind of shy away for that. If you want to get rid of Austin Barnes, I think it's going to have to be designate for assignment or potentially release him with that. So with that, I don't see that as likely. But there could be an opportunity for Hunter Fiducia there. The other question with that is that doesn't solve your necessity to have catcher depth. That would be a way to get Hunter Fiducia to the big league roster, but then you're still going to need to add some guys outside the organization to have some sort of depth with that. Sean also says lefty hitting catchers who smash fastballs is just too valuable to leave exposed. This guy crushed right-handed pitcher at AAA last year. I think that's absolutely correct.
23, 26, 29, 31. I've actually got 35. Yeah, no, there's 35 on the 40-man right now. I know Mike said that Baseball Reference is saying that there's 10 spots available. There are 35 men on the Dodgers official 40-man roster right now. I just went back and counted it again. Just going down the list, Yinski Almonte, Walker Buehler, Caleb Ferguson, J.P. Fireeisen, Tony Gonsolin, Victor Gonzalez, Brusdar Gratterall, Michael Grove, Brian Hudson, Kyle Hurt, Dustin May, Bobby Miller, Ryan Pepio, Evan Phillips, Emmett Sheehan, Gavin Stone, Blake Trinan, Gus Varlin, Alex Vesia, Ryan Yarbrough. Your catchers are Austin Barnes, Diego Cartaya, Will Smith. Infielders, Michael Bush, Freddie Freeman, Gavin Lux, Max Muncy, Miguel Rojas, Chris Taylor, Miguel Vargas, Yorbit Vivas. And then your outfielders are Mookie Betts, Johnny DeLuca, James Outman, and Andy Pajes. So that makes 35.
Yeah, and that's what I'm seeing from the Los Angeles Dodgers roster on MLB.com. That's what I'm also seeing from Fangraphs as well. So I believe it's 35 right now. Just a couple more comments on here. DJ Jesse, welcome to the show. Can't let Fiducia go. D Photos says Fiducia needs to replace Barnes. Yasiel Puig, Austin Barnes has a wet newspaper for a bat.
Yeah.
I think with that, that's just pointing to the struggles Austin Barnes has.
Yeah.
There is limited depth right now at the upper levels for the Dodgers as far as the depth that they have that's ready to make it to the big league level. So with that, you might see Austin Barnes continue. He is under contract. You're going to be paying him regardless. And then see what happens towards the beginning of the season. If things still don't work out, perhaps then you make an adjustment for there. We'll see what happens from there. But those, I believe, are the top three most likely guys to be added. Frasso and Knack, I say, as very, very likely to be added. For Hunter Fiducia, it's kind of like that 50-50 kind of toss-up right now.
I think your next kind of, level of candidates that – I think this next level is a bunch of guys like JoseRamos was last year that you feel like the Dodgers aren't going to protect that have a chance of actually getting picked up. Kind of like a JoseRamaos, if you will. So your next round of guys would be like a YeinerFernandez, CarsonTaylor, KendallWilliams. There's a big one. So let's say CarsonTaylor, YeinerFernandez, KendallWilliams. And then going down the line, JoseRamos, AlecGamboa, RyanWard, JohnRooney, Braden Fisher, Jermaine Rosario, Carlos Duran, Yuniel Choi, DrewAvans, Brandon Lewis, Tanner Dodson, Robinson Ortiz, who was a big deal about 2 years ago, hadn't been able to stay healthy. And then, we saw Christian Suarez this year. So, hey, there's a bunch of big-time names on there that are major league caliber type talents. And as you go through there, which one sticks out the most that you think would be the most likely to get taken if they're I don't think they're going to get protected, any of those names I named. Maybe KendallWilliams. I think he'd be the most likely, if the Dodgers finagle maybe a fourth. It would be interesting to see if the Dodgers put KendallWilliams on their 40-man over Hunter Fiducia because I think squarely that the first two are going to be Frasso and LandonKnack. So it'd be interesting to see if KendallWilliams would get prioritized over Hunter Fiducia, or if they prioritized him over somebody else to add a fourth spot to it, or over a free agent, because I think they are going to save 2 spots for free agents.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think with KendallWilliams, look, he's somebody who is and has been working in the AFL, the Arizona Fall League, over the past month or so, received an award for them for one of the weeks that really good week that he had. Actually received a comment towards the beginning of the show. If the Dodgers, from Yasiel Puig, if the Dodgers don't protect KendallWilliams, I think some team will grab him. Look, KendallWilliams, he dealt with some injuries to start this season, so he started a little bit later, but he made his way back to Great Lakes. He was with them in 2022, started the season with them in 2023, and he moved pretty quickly up to the Double-A level, was able to reach up in a start at Triple-A, provided some length for Oklahoma City during that outing, and KendallWilliams is a very talented individual. He's got some really good stuff.
There's a split finger right there. That's unique about him. There's a split finger.
Yeah, big, tall individual.
He's not the 100-mile-an-hour thrower, though. I mean, he's the 92, 93, 94 guy.
He's not one that's going to overwhelm you with velocity like some other starters will, but he's still got really good stuff. Doesn't have a ton of experience at the upper levels of the minors. If you're talking about Double-A and Triple-A, he only has 9 appearances, 9 starts in those, which isn't a ton, so that could shy away some other teams from taking him. But I think they're also going to be primarily looking at some stuff to see if that fits in. So with that, you talk about that split finger, you talk about that fastball. If he can keep it in the zone, if he can command that a little bit, get some guys to chase, I think he can be a really talented pitcher. Guy that I've seen quite a bit, have had the opportunity to interact with him a little bit at some of the season ticket holder events. Definitely a fun player. So we'll see what happens with him.
Yeah, I've had a chance to talk to him before out of Olive Branch, Mississippi. Eventually went to IMG Academy in Florida. There's that split finger change right there. It is a devastating pitch. Definitely profiles as a changeup. That's why they call it the split finger change. And that, that's he likes to play that off of his fastball, and that's definitely, and he has a good little slider to go with it too. So he's a guy that has some uniqueness to him. I think it would probably be an upset to me if the Dodgers did protect him. Am I off there?
Yeah, I think it's unlikely, just because Dodgers have a lot of starting pitching depth right now. You can never get enough starting pitching, so I think that would be an argument for that. He definitely has a lot of good stuff, as you just saw with that pitch. I think it's unlikely, just with the roster crunch that the Dodgers have right now and some of the other potential needs that they have. Definitely very talented, though.
Yeah, no doubt. Ended up going to IMG Academy. Actually got drafted by the Blue Jays and came over in the trade, I believe, with Ryan Noda, and that was the one that sent Moises. No, that was Moises Brito, I believe, in that deal. Yeah, but KendallWilliams had a good chance to see him a couple times last year in Tulsa. I did not get to see his outing. There's a good slider right there. Did not get to see his outing in Oklahoma City, but obviously I think he's like 6'6", so good length. And you can see right there the extension isn't great because, that's probably why his velo is not unbelievable, but the extension isn't great because he's throwing the split finger, and it's harder to throw a split finger if you get great extension on it. So, there's a good slider there, though. So, he has a good left turn to that slider. He has good tumble to that split finger, and then he has the fastball that's, I would say it's anywhere from 92, 94-ish, that type of thing.
Yeah, I would. That's from what I've seen. Yeah, that seems to be a route, right?
Yep. Okay, so let's keep going down the list here. Okay, the next guy, YeinerFernandez.
Yes. Yeah. So Yeiner is a guy that I saw quite a bit all season long at Great Lakes. Very versatile catcher. Can play not just catcher, but also can play some of can play second base as well, which is just so unique from the catcher position, which we talked about last show. If you wanted to have 3 catchers, you want to have some of that catcher versatility. He provides that a little bit. With Yeiner, he's not one of those guys that's a very powerful hitter. He's going to try to hit those singles. He's going to try to hit those doubles. He's going to try to do some of the small little things with that. I think he is still a year or 2 away from making it to the big leagues, which makes it probably very unlikely for the Dodgers to protect him, especially because they don't have necessarily the depth at the upper levels of the minor leagues.
Kind of like Jose Ramos, I don't think they're going to feel like they have to. That's a big leap to say you're going to take a guy that's an undersized catcher that hasn't even made it to Double-A yet.
Yes, and I think if Diego Cartaya could make that step to the major league levels next year, I think that could become a conversation. But I think right now, with the lack of roster spots and with the depth that the Dodgers have at catcher, I don't think YeinerFernandez is likely to be taken next year. But I mean, he's very talented. He's got a good feel for the bat. Doesn't strike out a whole lot. Can play some really scrappy baseball. I don't anticipate him being selected. I think he still is a year or 2 away, which is why I think the Dodgers probably won't add him to the 40-man roster, although could always be wrong.
Yeah, I don't think they'll add him, and I don't think he will get taken just because, first of all, he's undersized, and second of all, he's still at the high level. If you didn't take Jose Ramos last year because he's at the high level, I don't see a YeinerFernandez. This is Jose Ramos right here. Got a chance many different times to watch him in person, and I'll tell you what, when things go right for him, he is very, very, very impressive. A guy that a lot of people thought that might get taken last year in the Rule 5. He did not. If you would have watched this channel, I warned you of that because the strikeout rate was way too high last year. It would be difficult to say, hey, I'm going to put a guy in the 26-man with a 33% strikeout rate at the high A level, but I think he reduced that down some, started using the opposite field quite a bit more this past season, and had the injury bug. But, hey, Jose Ramos, he's a guy he's a 5-tool guy, man. He has all the speed. He has all the, he can hit home runs. Whenever he's really locked in, he can hit the ball the other way. He has great defense and all of that kind of stuff from Panama. He has great swag. So this is a very, very, very talented young man. Honestly, I have no earthly clue what's going to happen with him. I don't think the Dodgers are going to put him on the 40-man, but I have no clue what's going to happen to him in the Rule 5. Honestly, if I was another club like the Pirates, I would definitely take a chance on him.
Oh, yeah. No, I think this is in the Dodger system, the biggest question mark for other teams as far as, are they going to select this individual? I think with Jose Ramos, the tools that he brings are so incredibly amazing that a team that might be rebuilding, that might be looking to just acquire talent, might see a guy like Jose Ramos, even if they're not thinking about competing next season, and say, this guy's tools have so much upside that it is totally worth taking a chance on. He got to spend the entire season last year at Double-A. He got to spend a lot of time in the outfield and center field. You're talking about a guy who plays good defense, has got a wicked arm for center fielder as well. Also had a wicked arm when he was playing right field too. He's got speed. He also has some incredible power in his bat as well.
It's unbelievable. The power's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. He hit some balls last year. I don't mean to cut you off, but there's a Budweiser deck behind that. On that, and then there's a whole area of concession and where you can buy beer and liquor and all that. Behind that left field, he was hitting that concession stand, and John Higgins, who is the wonderful play-by-play voice for Tulsa, who has been in professional baseball forever. Matter of fact, John Miller, if you ask the play-by-play voice for the San Francisco Giants, if you ask John Miller, who one of the best just pure play-by-play guys are in the game of baseball, he will say John Higgins. He is literally that good. Dennis Higgins. I'm sorry, not John Higgins. Dennis Higgins. He is literally that good. And Jose Ramos hit a handful of balls last year that Dennis Higgins just started laughing. I mean, he was just like, you got to be kidding me. It was like, I've never seen a ball hit that far. That's the kind of power he has.
Yes,
And
no,
it's like a trampoline. It just bounces off of his bat.
Yeah, no, he definitely, back in Great Lakes, he definitely hit a lot of baseballs out to Buttle Street, right out behind Dow Diamond. No, he's got incredible power. So at Double A this past season, he was working on trying to fix some of the underlying numbers, the walks and strikeouts. He walked a little bit more, increased that by 1.5%. That's a good step. He also decreased his strikeout percentage by about 4%.
Yes.
And so he's looking to kind
What
of
did he get it
do
down
those
to
balance.
this year, Austin?
What was that?
What did he get his strikeout percentage down to?
Just under 29%.
Yeah.
So he's making those small incremental from about 33% to about 29%. With that, there was a little bit
4 to 5 points too high.
Yeah, it's a little bit high. Certainly, there are guys at the big leagues who do strike out at that rate, and he definitely does provide value in other aspects of the game as well. With that, he's trying to find that balance, in-game power, while also limiting some of the strikeouts as well. We saw
See,
some
I
of
wouldn't mind the strikeouts as much if he increased his stolen base total. I mean, I know in 2022 he only had like 7 stolen bases. I think last year he might have had like 9 or 10. And he's a great athlete. I mean, this guy ought to be stealing, in my opinion, 20, 25 bases. If he's going to strike out at a 30% clip, I think that stolen base rate would help offset some of that. Do you have that in front of you?
Yeah. So last year he had 7 stolen bases.
Yeah.
I think he could definitely, with the speed that he has, definitely look to increase that. And I think you saw that from a guy like a Norbert Vivas last season, who wanted to add another element to his game, started to steal some more bases. I think that would be something that would just add more value to JoseRamos as a player, make him a more well-off
like, how do you justify
player.
Jumping him to the major leagues with a 30% strikeout rate, and he's only has 7 stolen bases? I mean, how do you justify jumping him over 3 or 4 of the other guys that are ahead of him at AAA? It's kind of my question.
I don't know. As far as the Dodgers, I look at an other team perspective. I look at the tools that he has and say, I can turn this guy into an incredible big league player. I see the tools that he has.
Totally
so if you're
agree.
looking for another organization, you see the power, you see the speed, you see the defense. He plays a very important position in the outfield. You put all of these tools together and you see something that you can work with, something that you can build off of in the future as well. You also look at him, only 22 years old. Some team might see that as something that's very valuable as opposed to a guy who might be a little bit older. So perhaps a young up-and-coming team who might be rebuilding, might not be looking to compete next season, but is looking to just add talent, could see the talent that JoseRamos has and say, that is a guy that I need to have on my roster just for future talent because of the projection that we see that he could have. If he could continue to work on these games, continue to lower that strikeout percentage just a little bit while keeping that in-game power, maybe look to add some stolen bases as well, he could be a really valuable player. With the Dodgers, I think it's hard to justify him jumping over a lot of the talent that they have in the outfield. I think it's very difficult to find a spot for him on the 40-man roster. I think he's talented enough to be on the 40-man, no doubt about that. And the Dodgers are not going to look forward to losing the tools that he brings to the table. But I think it's more likely that he goes unprotected, in which case, if he goes unprotected, if I'm another organization, I look very closely at adding him, especially if I'm not looking to compete in the following season.
Yeah, and here's another thing about him, okay, 47.5% pull percentage. So that pull percentage right there would tell you he's going to strike out quite a bit. You know, you want that thing, for a power hitter, what do you want that around about 38, 39%, would you say, Austin? Anything over 40 is probably a little bit high.
I guess it depends based on organizational philosophy and stuff too. So this goes into kind of in depth. You look at a team like Tampa, they might just want a guy like Jose Ramos to hit for power and to hit for home runs over to left field. When you saw that with a guy like an Isaac Paredes, they took him and they're like, we want you to pull for power. They could see a guy like Jose Ramos and say, we want you to do that as well. Whereas some other organizations might want him to. What was that?
Capable of so much more than just hitting home runs, though.
Oh, I know. And I know it
he hit
totally,
19 last year, which is, I mean, it's not like he's hitting 50 home runs. You know what I mean? He hit 19.
But I think there is more power in there than just 19 home runs. I think there is. But I think
he would hit more home runs if he had a lower. I think he would hit more home runs if he had a lower pull percentage and a lower strikeout rate. I think he has so much power that if he just puts the ball in play more often and strikes out less, some of those hits that he puts in play are going to be home runs.
I think that is totally valid to have that, and I think that speaks to the power that he has. I think there's just
I love Jose
no. You're
Ramos,
not being hard.
By the way.
No,
I'm just trying to be very
all.
fair as to why the Dodgers wouldn't protect him. Does that make sense?
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. It depends on what other teams see as far as their hitting philosophy is concerned. I'm not sure exactly what other organizations, what their plan, what they would want to see with Jose Ramos. I think they would just see a guy that has incredible tools and incredible talent, a guy that has experience at the upper levels, not a AAA, but plenty of experience facing against AA pitching. And they could see a guy like that and want to potentially protect him on their roster. So a couple of comments that I want to bring up. Sean mentioned Ramos' swing reminds me of Gary Sheffield. Doesn't have that kind of initial.
Sheffield had way more downward of a plane. That's a straight uphill swing right there.
Yeah, and he doesn't kind of have
maybe
that
some of the aesthetics of it and how hard they swing, but as far as how they get through the ball, that swing right there that's straight uphill right there. In my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then the Domino says it looks like Dodger Stadium needs a Budweiser deck for Jose Ramos.
Yeah.
Eddie Romero says good trade bait for some starting pitching. So that could be an interesting outside of the box philosophy. If you're looking to potentially, if you protect a guy like a Jose Ramos, perhaps you use him or some of the other guys within your organization to potentially trade for some starting pitching. That I think is absolutely a possibility. If you don't want to lose Jose Ramos, perhaps for nothing in the Rule 5 draft, if you anticipate him being taken, adding him to the 40-man, and then eventually trading him with the idea that that roster spot is going to open up eventually. Definitely an outside-the-box way to think about it, and something that I definitely would consider if I'm the Dodgers, just taking in as many different avenues as possible.
See how early in his swing the barrel goes below his hands? I mean, that's real early. The barrel is already below his hands that early, which tells you the only way that he can actually get to this pitch is to come at it like that. Okay, so because at this point the barrel's already below his hands, so you see, look at there. See how his hands go from here to there. Watch his hands lift right here. Boom. That's definitely a swing that lifts. That's going to be a hole that, in my opinion, of course, if you throw him in the outer half like that, he's going to nail it. I think that's a hole that 96, 97 mile an hour fastballs can expose. We'll see, though. And hey, as they go through the minor leagues, they have to close those holes. We saw that with Diego Cartaya. So, hey, I hope you don't think I was being negative with Jose Ramos. I love this young man. I think he's just a few, little tweaks away from – I want him to reach his entire potential, which is a guy that could be, can literally do everything, a Ricky Henderson type guy.
Yeah.
I think he has, that type of transformational – talent. Let's not just be a home run hitter, kind of is what I'm saying with him. Okay, let's go to our next guy. Let's talk about one of my favorite players in the entire organization. Definitely one of the toughest, and he's in a situation where he is a diehard Dodgers fan, grew up in California, and his whole family is diehard Dodgers. Let's start with some live video. AlecGamboa. He had a wonderful season with AA and AAA. had a really rough ending to it. You know, as a matter of fact, it was rough enough to where he actually came out with a statement that, hey, I've been knocked down before. I get back up every single time. And he is 100% correct. Idolized Fernando Valenzuela. That's why he wears that number. That's why he has the leg kick and all that looks like Fernando Valenzuela. He's a young man that, you know, out of the Sacramento area has really worked his way up. So AlecGamboa, where does he stand?
Yeah, so this comes to the question of the Dodgers as far as left-handed relievers. So you're looking at the 40-man roster. They do have some left-handed relievers on their roster. Are they planning to utilize them, or are they planning to potentially add some youth, some younger arms into that mix? I think if they're looking to add some guys within the organization, left-handed relievers, right up towards the top of that list is AlecGamboa. You mentioned it, a lifelong Dodger, somebody who has worked so incredibly hard to get every single opportunity that he has. And last year, it started to all come together, especially towards the beginning of the season. He's somebody
All
who's
the way
worked
up until
so
about
hard.
the last 2 or 3 weeks, he was damn good.
Oh yeah, no, he was very, very good. Somebody who's got a lot of
keep
talent.
in mind,
He's got
he
a
hit
lot
as
of
high as
potential.
99 this year. He sits about 94, 95, 96. But hey, 96 from the left side is nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah, not at all. No, I mean, adding some of that velocity from the left-handed side from the pitcher just adds another element to the bullpen that the Dodgers don't necessarily have a ton of right now, especially out of the bullpen. There's not a lot of left-handed pitchers or left-handed power pitchers in particular. He's somebody who can have some velocity in his approach. AlecGamboa, definitely very talented. I think it's going to depend on what the Dodgers envision for guys like a Victor Gonzalez, guys like a Brian Hudson. Are they planning to keep those guys, or are they wanting to transition on from them to some other guys? AlecGamboa would be right up towards the top of that list.
Yeah, base on balls per nine at the AAA level was 6.47. That's always been his bugaboo. Hey, when he's on, he's like an artist. He paints that outside corner, and he just is extremely effective. But when he's not, he tends to float in and out of the strike zone. That's what gets him in trouble. So, like I said, hey, that walks per nine at 6.47 at the AAA level, that would make it tough. That's going to make it tough, in my opinion, to protect that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think that is the biggest blemish right now, or thing that he needs to work on at the upper levels, particularly at AAA. Being able to lower that walk rate, the walk percentage is something that's going to be really important, because the Dodgers, if they decide to keep AlecGamboa, if they decide that they want to call him up to the big leagues at any point, they are going to want him to be reliable. And if he's walking a bunch of hitters, it's going to be hard for him to stick at the big league level. So with that, I think that makes it a little bit tough to envision him in combination with some of the roster crunch to protect him. I wouldn't rule it out depending on what their evaluations are and what they might potentially see as a need for left-handed relievers.
I'll tell you what, though, man. Hey, this dude, like I said, he's one of the toughest human beings. And like I said, he has his stuff. His fastball is good. I'm going to go to another video here. I would not be in any way, shape, or form if the Dodgers did not protect him. I wouldn't be shocked at all if another team took him. And also, if the Dodgers don't take him and he doesn't get picked up in the Rule 5, which is also a possibility because relief pitchers are always a crapshoot. You know, I mean, we've seen that a lot. Okay, I think he has a great chance if he doesn't get protected and then he doesn't get picked up in the Rule 5. I think he has a great chance if he stays with the Dodgers of ETAing this next year with LA. So, you know, I think it's a win-win-win for him. I think any way you look at it, I think he has a great chance to make the major leagues next year.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right with that. And that's because of the hard work. And that's because of the hard work and just everything that he's done to put himself in the position that he is right now. Either he gets added to the Dodgers 40-man roster immediately, he gets taken by another team in the Rule 5 draft, in which case he's on a major league roster immediately, or it might take a little bit longer, but the Dodgers likely will need some pitching depth throughout the course of the season, especially with the bullpen. We know how versatile or how rough it is getting to the big leagues of the bullpen. There's a lot of moving pieces. AlecGamboa could very well make his debut this next season, in which case that would be an absolute dream come true for him. Would be so amazing to see his journey come to him pitching in a Dodgers uniform. Just would be so cool to see.
Okay, let's get to the next guy. My man, I love this guy out of Scotticoke, New York, JohnRooney. If I can get to his video, let me keep scrolling here, and here's some. Love me some JohnRooney, and for many different reasons. But reason number one is that he picked off Jose Altuve this year. How about that?
That is a very good reason to like him. But there's so much more about his game that is very much valued and really talented too.
Wait for it. Right there. Bye, Jose.
Yep, there it is.
How about that?
Look at that. And you talked about JohnRooney. We talked about him kind of before this past season too. He's incredible at that pickoff move.
Yeah, 13 pickoffs. It's the best pickoff in all of baseball.
Yeah, no, he is so good at that. But in combination with that, he's also a really good pitcher as well. Somebody that, if you don't follow Dodgers Daily, you might not have really heard of this guy's name. I'm telling you, he's a very, very good pitcher, and somebody that very well could see himself have some time at the big league level, whether that's with the Dodgers or whether that's with some other organization next year. I think that is something that is pretty likely to happen. Obviously, injury dependent, opportunity dependent. He definitely has the talent to be able to do that.
He's in the same boat with Gamboa. I think he's in a win-win-win. I think either he gets protected, put on the 40-man. Definitely. Okay, none of these guys that get put on the 40-man this year, if a JohnRooney or an AlecGamboa, if anybody other than LandonKnack or NickFrasso gets put on the 40-man and protected, they are going to make the major leagues. There is no chance in the world that the Dodgers are going to put any of these other guys on the 40-man with the roster crunch they have if they didn't plan on actually using them at the major league level next year, my opinion. So if JohnRooney, AlecGamboa, any of these guys get put on the 40-man, that tells you right there that they are going to get probably quite a bit of runtime at the major league level next year. Elite pickoff move. He's another guy that doesn't just throw it 100 miles an hour. He's 92, 94. They turned him sideways yesterday or last year. They did away with his 4-seam and changeup, gave him a 2-seam and cutter, eventually worked the changeup back in. But, yeah, JohnRooney, he's a guy that I could – hey, if you're another team out there and you're watching this for some reason, yes, I love JohnRooney because he is a great dude. I've interviewed him twice and communicated with him, even more often than that. Matter of fact, about 2 days after the last game, I saw a video of him working out. I was like, dude, take some time off, man. It's like you're like the energy. He's like, dude, I can rest when I'm dead, right? Okay, yeah. So, yes, I love the dude, so I'm probably, a little bit biased towards him, but I'm just telling you, if you're a major league club out there and he does not get protected, take this dude. Take AlecGamboa. Take Hunter Fiducia. Take JoseRamos. These dudes are great baseball players.
Yeah, and I think we are some of the we're rooting for these players too. If there's better opportunity from elsewhere outside the Dodgers organization, which means that the Dodgers already have a ton of talent within their system, we want these guys to have opportunities too. So we're rooting for JohnRooney, we're rooting for AlecGamboa, we're rooting for all of these guys. So I think you mentioned it. It's a win-win-win for both AlecGamboa and JohnRooney. I think they're going to see an opportunity at some point come up for them at the big league level. They've been so talented. They've got really good potential, and they're pitched from the left side too, which is something that you don't always get, or at least it's a little bit tougher to find relief pitchers like that. So I think that gives them a little bit of a leg up. So we'll see what happens with them. I don't necessarily anticipate, or at least I think it's going to be difficult for the Dodgers to add them just because of the roster crunch that we've been kind of preaching throughout this entire show. But if they do add them, that's going to be something that's going to be really good and really positive for the Dodgers and for these individuals as well.
Yeah, so let's go through some more of our list. I'm going to go ahead and get some video. I think the next guy we want to talk about, what would you think? Maybe RyanWard?
Yeah, we can go ahead and go through. Yeah, we can go ahead and go through the outfielders kind of really quick. Again, with these are other guys that are eligible for the Rule 5 draft, not necessarily anticipating all of these guys to be taken, although it's not totally impossible, especially with guys at the upper levels of the minor leagues, closer to being big league ready. And with a guy like Wardo, man, he's a really talented outfielder, a guy that a couple of years ago, when I got the opportunity to see him play just about every single day, you talk about somebody who hit for some really sneaky power. He had 27 home runs. He hits for upper 20s home runs every single year. Can walk some, doesn't strike out a ton. He's a really good player. He can hold his own in the outfield, plays mostly left field. He's got some of that sneaky pop in his bat, and he's also got a really good hit tool as well. I think that combination makes him a really talented player.
Yeah, no doubt. Wardo, I love this young man. He's a great player. He's just kind of one of those. He's trying to become, obviously become a better defender. You see a good play right there by RyanWard, but he's a guy that is massively underrated for the amount of power that he brings.
Yes.
This guy is constantly, every single year, up there towards the top of everybody in the organization as far as the amount of home runs he has. I think he has a hit tool that could also hit. What would you say, Austin? Let's say he hits right there. Look at that massive home run. I think he has the potential to be a 25 home run guy at the major league level. Would you agree with that?
He certainly has shown that at the minor league level with the opportunities that he has. So if you put him at the big league roster and let him get adjusted to that, I think you could see that as a potential for him, potentially, yeah.
So what combination of, let's say he does hit 25 home runs, what would you say, maybe a 250, 260 average?
Yeah, so if you go back to 2021 and 2022, at 2021 at the high A Great Lakes level, he had 278, double A 255. I think right around that range is what you could potentially see as some of the upside at the big league level for him.
Yeah, I would agree. RyanWard, he's one of those guys. Actually, the Dodgers decided to put him at the AAA level over Andy Pages at the beginning of the year. That is before Andy Pages got hurt. So RyanWard, he's one of my young men out of Millbury, Massachusetts. I don't think he's going to get protected. Do you? I
don't anticipate that, no, unfortunately.
What would be your guess as far as another team? Do you think he would get picked up?
That's a really tough one. I don't know necessarily what the other team's plans are, or if the teams if other teams are looking for somebody to potentially add who's close to big league ready. You could potentially see him. Although another thing to keep in mind with the Rule 5 draft is you don't necessarily have a ton of guys always selected because other teams have roster crunches as well. Last year there was
and you got not
15
the 40,
to 20
man. You
guys
put him on
taken.
26.
Yes, you have to put him on the major league roster. I think if it would be another thing if you could add him to potentially your 40-man roster, but he didn't have to play up at the big league level. I think he would gather more interest there. I don't think it's totally impossible that another team could see him as an option. But with that, I would see it as unlikely just because you're talking about 15 to 20 guys who Rule 5 draft every single year. So typically around that range. So you're not looking at a ton of guys. Other teams have talent as well that they will be looking to, or they'll have to make available. So we'll have to see what happens with Wardo. Either he'll get taken by another organization, which we would absolutely love, or he'll continue to work on and continue to develop within the Dodgers organization, in which case I think he can make some really good improvements next season.
Braden Fisher, one of the unsung heroes of the entire minor league system this last year. This young man out of League City, Texas, he fought injury early on. And the thing about him is he went multiple innings like 25 times. I mean, and a couple times he went like 3 innings. He closed, he opened games, he mowed the grass, he did the laundry. This guy, and he was on a team, the Tulsa Drillers, that was in chaos, man. You know, their manager, Scott Hennessy, got cancer. They had a million different promotions. You know, AlecGamboa, JohnRooney, as far as the relief corps goes, they got promoted. The entire starting staff got promoted. They were losing a lot of games, and he was absolutely 100% completely nails every time he went out. I can't tell you how much respect I gained for Braden Fisher. Good extension, 94, 95, 96, wipeout breaking ball. If you're another club, Astros, because he's from South Texas, he's not going to get put on the 40-man. I just can't see any way that.
Yeah.
I don't mean that negative. I'm just saying from a roster crunch perspective, he's not going to get put on the 40-man. Honestly, I kind of hope he doesn't, because I want the Astros or the Rangers or, you know, somebody else to take this young man, just like we were talking about Gus Varlin last year. Put him on your 26-man, and he will help your club. I love Braden Fisher.
Oh, yeah. No, I love Fish, too. And he's somebody that I got to see 2022 quite a bit. He was with Great Lakes for a lot of that. Got put into a lot of really big spots for Great Lakes. Started the season with the Loons as well. Got to see him in 4 outings. We got to pitch in the 40-degree, the cold weather. And let me tell you what he did in those 4 appearances. Now, take into account really small sample size. This does not correlate with the entire season. He struck out 61.5% of the batters, didn't walk a single guy in those 4 appearances. Ball, man. He was, to see some of the improvements that he made, even in a small sample size, in a cold environment, was just unreal. That the Dodgers immediately were like, yeah, you need to be in Tulsa. And so they sent him to Tulsa. You got to see him continue to grow, continue to gain that momentum. And this past season, I mean, you talk about in Tulsa, 2.95 ERA.
Ridiculous.
He's got some good strikeout stuff too. And Fish is just a really, really talented dude. I hope that he gets an opportunity somewhere. If he doesn't, he's going to continue to make strides and continue to grow within this organization. He's a really good individual.
And his parents, Norman and Lori, got a chance to meet them, and then Ralph, the grandpa, and I believe I met his nephew. I don't quote me on that. They're in Tulsa, but hey, they're actually a family that travels around and gets to see him quite a bit. That's not his best breaking pitch right there. Matter of fact, that's his family right there. If you see right here, that's his dad right there, and that's his mom to his right, to his left.
Fired up in some of the seats that I like to sit in.
Yeah, so watch them right here as they go on. There's dad, there's mom. Mom's got the big hat on. They're all fired up. They're in Tulsa as he's throwing strikes here. As he strikes people out, it gets pretty fun to watch because they are just wonderful people. Braden, obviously loves his family to death, and just some of the nicest people that you'll absolutely ever meet ever. So you can tell right there, they're pretty fired up for a game in the middle of June, right? Okay, so Braden Fisher, interesting story about him, was trying to add a little depth to his slider. So one of his pitching coaches in spring training actually told him, just try to throw your slider like a curveball. So he did that for about 6 days in a row. Next thing you know, he had a curveball. So now he has a curveball and a slider to his arsenal. He throws strikes. He has good extension. He's the most versatile human being and never complains about anything, just does everything you ask him. So, man, just huge fan of, no doubt about it, huge fan of Braden Fisher. So go ahead and finish up on him.
Yeah, no, you mentioned that. And I think this is one of the really important aspects and opportunities that you have getting to know a lot of these guys in the minor league system. You get to interact with them as people. You get to interact with some of their family members that might show up, especially if you're loud and vocal, like I know both of us are. And then you combine that with him being an amazing person with the pitching talent that he has and the strides that he was able to make. He's continued to make really good improvements. He is Rule 5 eligible. I don't anticipate the Dodgers adding him to the 40-man roster. I don't think it's likely that another team would add him, although it wouldn't totally shock me if another team saw the talent in his arm. They saw the potential, the strikeout potential, and they wanted to add that to their bullpen. I think that might be a little bit tough. If he doesn't get added, he'll continue to work with the best pitching coaches in the minor leagues in the Dodgers organization and continue to work to make improvements. I'm so excited for the future that Braden Fisher has.
Yeah, last year at Tulsa, the pitching coaches were Duran Olinger and Ryan Dennick. Not exactly sure what that will look like this year. So, hey, did you get a chance to see the article that Mike wrote on Yamamoto?
I did get a chance to read that, yes. Just kind of briefly, yeah.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Oh, yeah. No, Mike does an amazing job with that. Yeah. I'm excited to see what he continues to put up. Are there any comments that we need to get to?
We're working our way to DrewAvans next.
Yeah, so there is a lot of comments, and I'm sure we'll get to this in kind of future shows or potentially towards the end of the show. We're trying to highlight a lot of the Rule 5 guys right now. There is a lot of talk about the Brewers as far as them potentially being open for business. I think just kind of mention this briefly before we move on to DrewAvans. We might be able to touch on this, answer a few questions towards the end of the show.
Check, by the way, who just elected free agency. Just thought I'd tell you that.
Yes. Just want to kind of mention Brewers. Sounds like just about everybody's going to be available for trade. So there's going to be a lot of talk about who the Dodgers could potentially get. We've talked a lot about Corbin Burns. We talked a lot about Adames. Christian Yelich is another possibility. I think to best go over that, I think that's going to be better to do that, have a little bit more of its own show, potentially to talk about those aspects. Yeah. Definitely leave your comments as far as if there are different ideas brought about in the comment section. Definitely leave your thoughts in the comment section. You can kind of have that discussion kind of back and forth. I don't think we'll be able to fully address those and address some of the other guys that are eligible for the Rule 5 draft tonight. But I definitely think exploring the guys that Milwaukee potentially has is definitely something that the Dodgers are going to do. You look at some guys like Corbin Burns, who definitely fits a need for that top of the rotation arm. We can talk potentially about some of those guys probably either towards the end of the show or at future shows. Keep talking about it in the comment section, though. We love to see comments roll in as we transition on to another guy who is eligible for the Rule 5 draft, one of your favorite players within the organization, DrewAvans.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He's a guy that can steal bases. He's a guy that can bunt. He's a guy that plays a tremendous outfield. He's super, super, super gritty. He's just the type of guy you want on your team. I personally think that if you put him on a major league roster and you give him every day at bats at the major league level, he'll be a top 10 offensive player in the major league level at scoring runs. In other words, I think he'll be in top 10. Well, I guess that's exactly what I said. He'll be in the top 10 at scoring runs because he'll just figure out a way to get on base. I think if you look at his offense, I think you look at nothing else with him other than you say, hey, I don't care what your average is. I don't care how many home runs you hit. I don't care any. I want you in the top 10 at scoring runs. Figure it out. And I think he would do that. I think there's no doubt about it. Can you hear me? We might be cutting out here just for a second.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think you just eliminate everything else. And you just say, don't worry about anything other than I want you in the top 10 in the league in scoring runs, and I think he gets that done.
Yeah, no, and then you mentioned that at AAA, past 2 seasons, where he spent the past 3 seasons at AAA Oklahoma City.
Yep.
He scored 94 and 95 runs back-to-back seasons, 2022 and 2023. You talk about a guy who can just make things happen on a baseball field. Talk about just a true baseball player in DrewAvans, and somebody that you've seen a lot of in Oklahoma City. Somebody who's kind of scrappy. Just he's going to do all the little things to try to help a team win. And with that, I think that is extremely valuable. I think that's something that somebody that you want to have on your baseball team. So DrewAvans, just a dude, a baseball player, somebody very gritty as well. So definitely somebody to keep an eye on. I don't anticipate the Dodgers adding him
it's
to
a no
the
and a
40
no.
man. I just don't think there would be
and he's probably not going to get taken. I hope.
Yeah, I just don't see there as being an opportunity for him at the big league level with the Dodgers, with some of the talent that they have. So we'll see what happens with DrewAvans. I know we're going to continue to talk about how good of a player he is till he gets opportunities at the big league level, because he is that talented.
Yep. Okay, so let's transition this back and let's start buttoning this thing up. There were a million different guys we didn't get to. So some of the other guys we didn't talk about today, CarsonTaylor, didn't talk about him just because he's been so injured the last 2 years. I don't think he's realistic either way. I think he's very talented. I think he's he's extremely good. Gotten way better defensively. You saw a really good year for him there at Great Lakes. You saw him really grow. So CarsonTaylor's another one that I think is going to be a Major League Baseball player someday. I just think he needs a year of staying healthy. Still at the AA level. He's been a repeat AA 2 years. Nelson Quiros, Jorge Puerta, who's a very talented catcher at the single A level. Edgardo Enriquez, Yoel Ibarra, which I love Ibarra, of course, but he was at the single A level too, so not going to get taken. Robbie Pito, he finished last year at the AA level. And Octavio Becerra, Jimmy Lewis, who's been, just trying to get healthy for so many years now. Waylon Santana, and then some other names. Jermaine Rosario, we have a lot of experience with him.
Yeah.
Got him an on and off guy. When he's on, he's really, really good. Two really interesting names that I could actually see taken in the Rule 5 would be Yunil Choi and then also Carlos Duran. And the reason why I could see them taken, Austin, is that I think you could immediately put them on the IL and you wouldn't have to take up a 26-man roster spot with them.
Yeah, no, that makes it really interesting to see what other teams would do in that aspect. I think they still have to play them at some point through the season. Otherwise, they might have to play them a little bit the following season. I know there's some sort of rules as far as protecting, just adding guys and then keeping them on the injured list the entire season. That would be a loophole in there. Yunil Choi is guy who's eligible for it. Another guy who's eligible for it, and I'm telling Dodgers fans that this guy, I believe, is going to break out at some point because I saw it this past season. Yon Castro. Yep. I think he's going to be somebody that is going to.
By the way, I asked all the loons, a lot of them, hey, if there was, I started asking fun questions on the interviews. If there was a arm wrestling contest, who would win? They all said it's easy, Yon Castro.
Oh, yeah.
He's young.
Yes, no, easily. And we talked about it as one of the previous shows before the interview with Robo was released. And, that makes total sense now. But also, his stuff is unreal. If you haven't had a chance to actually watch him, whether that is video or in person, he really surprised me and really showed a lot this past season. So there's a lot of guys up and down this list that are eligible for the Rule 5 draft. I don't anticipate the Dodgers necessarily losing a ton of these guys. I could see some of these guys taken. Last year we saw 3 guys within the Dodgers organization taken. I think you could see a couple guys potentially be taken depending on what the Dodgers decide to do. There is limited availability on the roster for the Dodgers, so we'll have to see what happens with them. I expect NickFrasso, I
Yep.
expect LandonKnack to be protected 50-50 on Hunter Fiducia, and then we'll kind of see on the rest. We mentioned some interesting, perhaps alternative methods. If you're already anticipating a trade, if you add a guy like a JoseRamos in anticipation of either trading him or somebody above him, that could potentially be a possibility. So a lot of interesting decisions to be made before the November 14th deadline to add these guys to the 40-man roster.
Some other names: Brandon Lewis, who led the league, the Dodgers minor league system in home runs per at bat in 2021. Tanner Dotson, who has reached 100 miles an hour with his fastball. Trevor Bettencourt, who has the big-time breaking ball. Have an interview with him. Sauron Lau, who actually transitioned to pitching last year from his third base spot. Jack Little, who made it up to Double-A Tulsa. Robinson Ortiz, who was a big deal 2 years ago. I mean, he was in all over the Dodgers' top 30 prospects list. Has not thrown in the last 2 years, so he hasn't been healthy. Mitchell Turansky, who finally got back on the mound this year, had been injured for many different years, out of Michigan State. Carlos De Los Santos, who has the big fastball. Wouldn't shock me for somebody like that, for somebody to take a guy like that. Of course, he was at the high level, so it would be a big leap. Benoni Robles, who we saw really come a long ways in the high leverage moment, left-handed high leverage reliever, and then Christian Suarez with the big sweeping slider. So, hey, those are the names.
Now you're starting to talk about some of my guys there.
Yeah, no doubt. But hey, we are absolutely out of time. We have had just a tremendous crowd tonight. We haven't got to as many comments as we normally do, but we had so many of these guys we wanted to cover. We want to make sure and get them covered. We are going to have one more Rule 5 show, at least cover it as far as after we find out who is protected, because there will be some time in between who we find, when we realize who gets protected versus the actual Rule 5 draft when it happens. So we will address this again, at least cover it again, but this was our big show for the Rule 5 draft. So, hey, we want to thank everybody out there. Hey, just a reminder, too, leave a comment and leave a like in the regular comment section, regular like section. Share this video. Tell all your friends about Dodgers Daily. Also, we don't have the Super Chat on. If you'd like to help Dodgers Daily by donating, we have our GoFundMe account in the description. So any little bit that you could help donate would obviously help there. So until next time, we would like to thank everybody for tuning in and say, Go Dodgers!